Sure that this is, make sure that's off, beautiful. Make sure this is on. Boom. Ready? And welcome to Common Mansplaining. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. I am going to be running solo tonight. Christian is not feeling well. So hopefully some of you guys are going to be around to keep me company and chat a lot in the chat box so I can answer your questions. This is a perfect time for you guys to reach out and hit me up, get my thoughts on different things, because I won't have anybody else to bounce ideas off of. But today I'm going to talk about ICE being in North Carolina, the state that I was formerly in. Right now I'm in Florida, but I used to live in North Carolina. And when I did, this would have affected me slightly more. I have a lot of friends in Charlotte. I still do have a lot of friends in Charlotte. So ICE moves into North Carolina, and it's called Operation Charlotte's Web. Kind of obviously a play on words on the book, the novel that I'm sure we've all seen, like little animated videos of when we were young. But anyway, so ICE goes in and they've made, I think, about 370 arrests. And guys, by the way, I just want to preface this by saying I'm a little bit under the weather myself. So I normally prop myself up. You see me shuffle in my seat because I have an issue with my medical issue anyway, but I usually use my knees, my legs to prop myself up, and I can't even do that now because both my knees are messed up. But anyway, so yeah, we're talking about ICE in Charlotte. They've made about 370 arrests and in climbing. Obviously, Bovino is in charge of this, and there have been, as usual, outrageous responses on both sides to this thing. There's this thing going on, and it always makes me wonder why it is truly so difficult for us to just get behind in enforcing the law, right? Like, I mean, it's one thing if you don't agree with the law, right? But one thing I'd like to ask people, and if you're out there listening, I'm wondering, where's the person who disagrees with the law but agrees with enforcing the ones we have anyway? Because that seems to be a nuance that's missing in today's society. We have the extreme of the person who just hates everything that Trump does and just doesn't want to follow the law because they just don't like anything Trump does. They don't like the law. And we have the person that loves everything that Trump does and, is really big on, deportations and getting, illegal immigrants out of the country. But I rarely find the person in the middle who doesn't really agree with the law, but is down for enforcement anyway, because it is in fact a law, right? It's still a legal fact. It's still a fact representing the social norms that we've created in our society. So it's kind of interesting that I don't ever see that. But obviously, while they were there, while they were in Charlotte, they primarily focused on targeting the illegal aliens that have also committed other crimes, right? That's their primary focus, is to target illegal aliens who have also committed, like, especially the dangerous crimes like child exploitation or, known gang members or, aggravated assault, felony larceny, anything, what have you. But my point is that that's their focus. Their focus is to target people who are criminals additionally to the crime of being an illegal immigrant, which is a crime, right? One thing I hear all the time is, these guys don't commit any crimes. They're just, the day-to-day farmers or construction workers. That's all they are. They're all just normal people trying to live out their lives. And I'm sure a vast majority of them are. But that doesn't mean that they haven't committed a crime, right? They have still committed the crime of not only crossing over the border illegally, but continuing to live in the nation illegally. Both of those are illegal, right? So every day they live in the nation, they're committing a crime. Now, once again, if you feel like that shouldn't be a crime, like it ought not be a crime, then plant your flag and, make political statements, go to protests, vote people out who, want strong immigration laws, vote people in who want open borders. I mean, that's your prerogative. But it's still against the law today. And so you have to understand that there really is no such thing as someone who's a non-criminal illegal alien, right? The very fact of being an illegal alien, right? The key word there is illegal. They have already violated the law. They've violated it multiple times. Okay. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out. Now, as ICE is there and they're focusing their attention on those who are actually criminals above and beyond the crime of being an illegal alien, they are also, what's a thug shake? I don't know what thug shake. Anyway, they are also occasionally picking up what people call non-criminal illegal aliens because of exigent circumstances. Because either they target, like what'll happen, typical situations, they'll target an apartment for somebody who they know is a child trafficker or a gang member. So they go to that apartment and they start making detentions, right? And then as they go into that apartment, they get the person that they're looking for, but that person is also living with two of his other, buddies or whatever, who are also illegal immigrants. And so they get swept up. Now, they didn't particularly do anything wrong other than being an illegal alien, which is, again, against the law. But even so, they're going to get swept up. It's just part of the exigent circumstances of the detention, of the arrest. The same thing happens when they would go like target a vehicle, right? Like maybe multiple people riding in a single vehicle, and they end up pulling over the vehicle knowing that the driver or the person that the vehicle is registered to or something like that has connection to the person who is illegal. They pull them over, they find out that there's 4 people in the car, and the other 3 people, whether they have any known crimes on the books or not is irrelevant, because they find out that they're illegal immigrants and get swept up in the thing. The other thing that'll happen is routine traffic stops. They'll put up roadblocks, like when they do what they did in Charlotte, right? They set up some roadblocks and then started checking IDs, and it was indiscriminate. They just like check everybody who went down a specific road. They may have targeted the road discriminately, like they may have targeted a community that is known for more crime or is known for more illegal immigration, but it's not like. So here's the thing that the Democrats will say. On the left, what they say is this is all racial profiling, right? It's very common. They'll try to use a race card. They'll say that that ICE is just going around like targeting people by the color of their skin, by their accent. I seriously doubt that is their primary mechanism. Now, I encourage, this is just me, and you guys are welcome to disagree, but I encourage police officers to use every piece of information at their disposal to catch criminals. That's legal, right? Now, I don't agree that they should just go around looking for people's skin color, because that's not a legal mechanism. But if they do happen to, like, for example, arrive on a scene, like the Home Depot raid, right? That was the classic one. They showed up on Home Depot and where a lot of the day labor was going on, right? And then people just started darting, right? People started booking. So obviously, if you're an ICE officer, you're gonna realize that something's up when the moment you show up as an officer of the law, everybody starts running. Like, that doesn't take any like genius. That doesn't take any selective targeting. That doesn't take any racial bias. That's just intelligence, right? Like, you just realize that people start running away, right? Okay. So these, for the most part, and this isn't to say that there isn't like a lone wolf who happens to be, I'm sure there are racist people in law enforcement. There always are, there always have been, there always will be, right? But just because there are rare circumstances where someone is racist and is targeting by skin color, for the most part, that's not the ICE procedure book, right? The ICE standard operating procedure is to target people who have committed other crimes or are suspected of committing other crimes. They do the casework on it. They do the investigation. This is all a matter of public record, by the way, too. They have all this information written down, set up, documented for them, to show anybody how they've done this. And then they go execute a warrant, and the warrant is targeted, right? And so then they end up targeting people based on the things that they have done, not based on the skin color or their accent or any of that other nonsense. So, get that out of your head. If that's what you think this is, get it out of your head. That's the common Democrat response to a lot of things, is to start fear mongering and to call it a racial profiling thing. That is not what's going on. All right. Now, there's spin on both sides. Right? I want to mention this because I want to be fair. Republicans have their own spin too. What Republicans will do often, and this is what I see them, it's like a tactic they use, and it actually kind of bothers me because it's not very honest. What Republicans will do is they'll find just like the left finds an incident of a racist person and uses that as kind of like a way to paint with a broad brush, the right will find an instance of an illegal immigrant who is in fact dangerous, which is relatively rare, by the numbers, right? By the numbers, illegal immigration doesn't usually produce a lot of really dangerous people. There are some, but they're not many, right? And so the Republicans will find one and then use that person as a poster child and say, look at this dangerous person. That means every deportation is making you safer. That's not truly accurate, right? So one of the things that I want to talk about today is, and I want to briefly address Ms. Down South Darling. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with raiding people cutting grass if you happen to know that they are in fact illegal immigrants. Now, what would make it wrong is if you did it because they're cutting grass and you're like, wow, that guy looks Hispanic. Like that would be wrong, right? That would be incorrect. That would be immoral, and it would be an unethical way of executing the office. But if you go to an address that you have already done casework on and investigated, and you know that this person is guilty of a DUI or something like that and is evading the law, yeah, doesn't matter whether they're cutting grass or anything else. That's immaterial. That's irrelevant, right? But anyway, so yeah, one thing I want to talk about is the difference between, and again, talking about how Republicans spin, there's a difference between crime by number and crime rate, right? Crime by capita, right? So what happens is a lot of times Republicans will indicate that if you deport a lot of illegal immigrants, that crime by number will go down. And yes, that's technically true, because anytime you have less people, there will be less crime, right? Just at all, period. Every single time that happens, if you remove people, there will be less crime. You will remove crime, right? And so the game that they play is they say, well, if you remove a bunch of people, you deport a bunch of people, yes, there will be less crime by number, which means therefore there will be less crime overall. Now, the trick though is that when we experience crime, we don't really experience it by number. We experience it by rate, right? So if you're going out and you're in a group of people, like a society, a city or something, and the city has 100,000 people in it, for example, right? And 50 of them are dangerous, right? That's a certain rate, right? Now, if you, for example, double the number of people, but you only add like 3 more dangerous people, the crime by number will go up, but the crime rate will go down. And so in that larger city with more people where the crime is dispersed, you will experience less crime, right? And so this is the fallacy that goes in with the Republican side of the spin. They make it seem like every time they reduce crime by number or just total population, that they're actually making you safer. Sometimes that's true, but it's very rare, right? It's actually usually more often that you will experience by rate. Hey, Roy, how's it going? Hey, Miami. Thanks, guys, for coming in. By the way, if you're here and you're just coming in, say hi, appreciate you. And then make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you super chat me $300 and, all the usual stuff. But anyway, yeah. So just making sure you guys understand the difference between crime by number and crime by rate. So the crime percentages go down the more immigrants we have on average. Now, that's just legal immigration. Illegal immigration is harder to tell because they're undocumented, right? So we don't know how many of them are actually dangerous criminals or not. That's part of the problem, right? We can't vet them. If you're not documented, we didn't document you. We didn't, make sure that we knew who you were before you came in. That's part of the problem with undocumented immigrants, is we can't tell whether or not you're dangerous, right? And therefore you don't fit into those studies very well either. It's hard to send out polls and surveys to people who don't exist, right, in the nation. So that's a little bit of the spin on both sides. I just want you guys to be cognizant that it is there, because both sides play this game politically all day long, right? I honestly hate that a sweep like this going into Charlotte is even necessary, because one of the things that bothers me is that, right, a lot, like I said, they're targeting people who are known criminals above and beyond being an illegal immigrant. So these are people who are like guilty of child exploitation, known gang members, felony assault, felony theft. If those people are already committing those crimes, why aren't they gone already? right? This is part of the problem, right? Local PD should have already picked them up and sent them to Homeland Security to be deported, right? And this is why sanctuary cities are actually really dangerous to me, I think, because if you have a state that's basically just at odds with federal law, I don't see how that could possibly work. I just don't. Maybe somebody out there can tell me, one of the audience can tell me how that's supposed to work. But like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a states' rights guy, right? So like, I believe that the states reserve certain rights, but one of them isn't to just violate federal law. That's not really one of those rights, right? Unless the federal law challenges a state right, like a fundamental state's right, and enforcement of federal crimes is a federal power. It is an enumerated power under Article 1, Section 8. So they absolutely can do that, right? And protecting the nation against people entering the nation without our assent, that is absolute. That's also a federal power. So that is not a state right. That's not something the state can be like, no, 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 we don't do that here. No, I'm sorry. So I hate that a sweep like this is even necessary. I feel like in a perfect world, right, it wouldn't be necessary. The other thing that bothers me, like, I hate that Trump uses the National Guard to enforce this with, like, he comes down with such like oomph, like such thunder. I hate that that's necessary too, because Trump shouldn't ever have to do it. The state governors, again, should be doing this before Trump even gets to it, right? Like Chicago, Pritzker and them should have already been like, they should have already been on top of that. They should have been like, you know what? Wow, our crime rate is insane. I'm going to do something about it. Why wait for Trump? Like, that nothing could make you look poorer than coming into your job, being there for a while, and then having, the president of the United States have to come down and rescue you. I mean, that's insane. So I don't understand why the states and the local systems aren't taking care of their own. I don't know why they're not protecting people. I don't know why the federal government has to step in and get involved so heavily, because they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to step in like that. I hate the National Guard having to be used like this to protect federal assets. I also hate, though, that people are like willing to attack federal officers so easily, right? And making the need to protect these federal assets so necessary. So I just want to read a couple comments here and see what people are saying. Aiding and abetting the enemy is definitely not a constitutional right. Absolutely, Agnes. Yeah, 100%. Like you can't aid and abet the enemy. And when he says the enemy, he's talking about criminals, right? You can't aid and abet criminals. You can't. I mean, and again, these people are violating federal law, right? Whether you agree with the law or not, they are in violation of federal law. Valeria says, I felt like it became that because some of the CLT undocumented people were from certain Latin American countries that are so socialist, and they came here wanting to do stuff like that. Yeah, often that is the case, right? People come here with expectations that America will conform to the previous nation that they were in. And what drives me crazy is like the whole reason you're coming to America is to find a better life, to find a better way of life, but a better life altogether, right? Better economy, better, less corruption, better way of doing things, better, systems that protect property rights and protect people and protect people's, American dream, the way to, to get ahead in life. And if you're coming here to improve yourself, why would you want to take the thing that you didn't like and bring it with you? That doesn't make sense to me. Now, don't get me wrong. That isn't to say that there aren't bits and pieces from everywhere on earth that are an asset to America. We definitely want to bring those in, right? That's why the melting pot of America is a great thing. But again, when you come here, melt into the pot. Don't like just be a side dish to this melting pot. Be part of the melting pot. You know what I mean? So, all right. In Mecklenburg, they haven't had to use the National Guard, although they did request it, right? The Mecklenburg, by the way, is the county in which Charlotte resides. So basically, it basically encompasses all the county too. So Charlotte's really big for North Carolina. I think it's the biggest city in North Carolina. But anyway, Mecklenburg Fraternal Police Order ordered, or requested National Guard for support, and Governor Josh Stein was like, no, it's not needed. And now I'm trying to think, even if it's not needed, like even if you don't need the help, does it really hurt that much to use it? I mean, it's on the federal budget. These are National Guardsmen. They're not state employees. Well, to be fair, I don't know exactly how that works financially. So maybe somebody else can answer that. But it's not that much money either way. Even if you were to use a couple of guys for a couple of days, just to protect assets, just to make sure things are smooth and make sure everybody, is on the up and up. I don't see why that would be a problem. Plus, it's another level of oversight too. It's another level of, making sure that the ICE officers aren't just, racially profiling, making sure that the people aren't, attacking ICE facilities and stuff and ramming into them with vehicles and throwing Molotov cocktails and stuff like they did in some of the other states. Thankfully, North Carolina seems to be at another level, kind of like another class. So thankfully, I hope it stays that way. I hope they stay, nice and peaceful. And of course, they're screaming at people. One thing that has happened in Charlotte is they'll like ring federal officers in, everybody like crowd around them and ring them in, won't let their vehicles go anywhere. I'm just going to let you know, if you hem people in and do not let them leave, that is textbook kidnapping. You cannot do that, especially to a federal agent, especially to a federal agent who's trying to execute enforcement of the law. You cannot do that. You must let them go do their thing. Even if you disagree with what they're doing, you have to, right? I'm sorry. You have to do that. Now, the left-wing response has been pretty crazy, right? Obviously, in addition to the protests and the fear-mongering and the claiming that this is all racial profiling and blah, 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 blah. One quick aside, if you really feel like this is all racial profiling, get involved as a governor, as a representative of the state. Get involved. Help, right? Collaborate on this thing so that they don't racially profile. Collaborate so that you're satisfied with the outcome, with the result. Get involved. I don't understand why people can't collaborate about this thing. Well, I do, because it's Trump. And so it's ran. I can't do anything that Trump likes because right? All right. So yeah, that obviously the protests and I don't like the politicians and the representatives of each state and even federal representatives speaking out publicly against enforcement of the law. I think that is very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But one thing I want to address first is a particular gripe that I hear from the left a lot, right? They say, where, they're wearing masks, right? They're upset that ICE officers wear masks to protect their identity, right? And I hear it all the time, everywhere. And they try to liken ICE officers to Gestapo, like it's some secret police. It is not even remotely the same thing. Not even remotely the same thing, because of the constitutional restrictions that they operate under, because of the oversight, because of the fact that they have their identification on them and their badges at all times, because they're still listed as the arresting officer on any document. There's a million different reasons why that comparison fails. But here's my challenge to the left. Here's my challenge to you. Would you ever do this job in particular? I realize that you wouldn't do it at all because you're ideologically opposed to it. But let's say you were doing this job. Let's say that you were in these ICE officer shoes. Would you really do this job while you have a family, while you have like a wife and kids at home? Would you really do this job without a mask on? Because I'd be terrified. I'd be terrified that the cartels were going to start targeting my kids. I would be terrified of that. Myself, okay, you guys know I'm ex-military. You know I'm not timid, right? You know I don't fear death, right? And I've already given an oath that I will protect the rest of America with my life. Even if I don't like a law or I don't like a person, I will still defend you to the death. That's just the commitment I've decided to make. And I will give my life to do it. I won't give my kids' life to do it, right? Obviously, I commit my life to doing so, but I don't commit other people's lives to that risk, right? So if there's a way that I can protect them, if there's a way that I can make sure that they're not in the spotlight, and cartel members are ordering hits on individual, and blanket hits on ICE officers. So how would you not want to okay. Let's talk about the fact that undercover operators operate all the time, right? Undercover police officers, undercover CIA officers, undercover FBI officers, undercover. There is nothing new about being clandestine in an enforcement or intelligence service. Nothing new about that. This is not special or different or weird. This is just very, very normal operating procedure when officers might be targeted or doxxed or attacked or their families are in danger. It's just very normal. Now, I get that you want everything to be as transparent as possible. I do too. That's why all of those other measures are in place, right? That's why they have to have their ID on. That's why they have to identify themselves. Like, by the way, if you guys are like, I don't know if there are any illegal immigrants in the chat. If there are, I recommend that you take advantage of the nation literally offering to pay you to go self-deport and come back and do things the right way. Because I want you here. I want you here in the nation. I think that immigration is a boon to the nation, but I want you to do it the right way. I want you to do it the legal way, right? And I will freely admit that our immigration system is not perfect. I will happily admit that it needs to be revamped, that it needs to be drastically overhauled. One thing that I'll tell you is that I think that it takes way too long for someone to become a citizen. Way too long. Like, I think that we should be able to get, like, sometimes it takes like 6, 7. I've heard of people taking like 10, over a decade to become a citizen. It should be like 2 years tops. 2 years if the person's serious about it. Right now, you can lollygag and maybe make it take longer, but I'm talking about if the person's serious, they're dedicated, they follow all the procedures, they do all the things, they do the background check, they take whatever. I recommend a test, just to make sure they're kind of at the same place where most citizens are as far as knowledge of, generic knowledge of the Constitution and the way that things work in America. But I feel like if you do all that, you learn English, great. Become a citizen, just like bing, bang, boom. You should be done. And it shouldn't cost nearly as much. I feel like right now it's kind of like a racket to get more money. Cause my brother-in-law is a DACA recipient, and golly, what a racket. It was like they were charging him over and over again just to stay in the program so that eventually he could become I'm like, what a joke, right? All right, but enough on that. We definitely can fix the immigration system. But the first step to fixing it is sealing off the bleeding, right? Closing the wound first. The easiest way to clean up a system is if it's already like manageable at manageable levels, right? So you don't have to agree with the law, right? But there are so many reasons why this law it's in place right now. We should honor it, right? We should execute the laws that we have. And I get that people want to protest. Please protest peacefully. But if you're an illegal immigrant and you're in my audience right now, right? Please take advantage of you're getting paid. You came in, you did it the wrong way, or your parents came in, did it the wrong way, or something like that, and you're literally getting paid for it. I'm not getting paid. I've been a citizen my whole life. I'm not getting anything. So, I don't think people realize exactly how blessed you can be when a nation is willing to, you know what it used to be when you did stuff like this, when you trespassed or you basically stole by proxy. They would cut your hand off in town square. We're not doing that here in America. Instead, we're paying you to go do things the right way. I can't imagine a more gracious system at the moment. But I mean, obviously, Bill asks, how are they getting paid? So yeah, you get $1,000 and a phone and some. I'll post some links in the. If I do it here, it's not going to come up. It's not going to stay. But if I'll post it in the permanent chat thing afterwards, yeah, you get paid $1,000 to self-deport and a phone, and you get some other stuff. They give you the tools to get back in line and do it the right way. Now, I get it. It's going to be inconvenient. It's not going to be fun, right? You're leaving whatever life or job you have here, or possibly even family, and going back to wait in Mexico and stand in line and do it the right way. It's not going to be fun, right? But they're paying you to do it, right? I can't imagine another crime that you can commit in America where someone will literally pay you to take it back and do it the right way. Every other crime in America, if you commit a crime, it's like at least they're taking money away from you, not paying you to fix it, right? I can't imagine a more gracious way to do this. But anyway, So yeah, if you're in the thing, please, do things the right way. But moreover, if you want to protest, great. That's fine. That's definitely your right. Well, provided you are a citizen, it's your right. And even if you're not a citizen, it's your right to protest or be angry. But just be careful, because if you're gonna get yourself involved in a police citizen contact and you don't have documentation, you're putting yourself at risk. But yeah, protest away. But then, by the way, like, don't hem in a police officer, don't ram their vehicle, don't throw bricks at people's windshields, because if you do that, you're not coming back. They're not gonna that ends your chances, right? You're not gonna get all of a sudden a chance to get paid to go back and do it the right way. Then you're gonna get sent to jail or prison in another nation, possibly, because you're committing, like, assault. Right? The guy that threw the brick at the windshield, I mean, that could have killed somebody easily could have killed somebody. But yeah, all kinds of stuff are going. People are firing at ICE officers, like literally shooting. It's insane. It's insane. And the politicians should be backing up law enforcement, right? I get that we have these teams in America. I get that there's like the Trump versus not Trump team, right? And so anything Trump or his administration does, I get that that's like one side, and that everybody else is on the other side of the team is like, oh no, anything Trump does is bad. So Orange Man bad. So anything he does, we're going to oppose it, right? I get that. I get that's how the lines are drawn. But the way I wish they were drawn is there's people who abide by the law, and everybody else is, who's a criminal, right? That should be the law, the line, the true line that's drawn. It should be people. One side is people who abide by the law and enforce the law, and the other side should be people who don't want to enforce the law because they're criminals. That should be the line, right? And politicians should be on the law-abiding side. They should be on the side that says, even though I don't agree with this law, again, like I said in the beginning, where's the nuance here? Where's that person that says, look, I don't agree with this law, but we need to enforce it, right? Like, I'll give you an example. All right. Here's an example. I don't agree that marijuana should be illegal. I really don't. I don't care about it. It's just not important to me. I don't think it's a big enough deal to be illegal. And if somebody gets caught with, like, it's definitely not illegal in many states. In North Carolina, it was illegal. I don't think it should be. But I believe in enforcing the law, right? So if you're caught with it, tough shit. Go to another to another state where it isn't, illegal. If you want to do that kind of thing, if you want to, break the law, you got to suffer the consequences. That's the only way that we can deter the law from being broken, right? And I want people not to make the mistake of thinking that illegal immigration is a victimless crime. It really isn't. It really isn't. Like, marijuana smoking might be, or it's at least close to a victimless crime. Right? Is there some circumstances where you smoke and you might not be very good at driving? Yes, and that could cause problems. But then there are other laws to manage that, like driving under the influence, getting into wrecks. There are other things that manage that. But illegal immigration definitely does drain the resources of a community. Now, long term, if immigrants are doing things the right way, long term, then immigrants are a boon to the nation. If they do things the right way, if they come in the right way, if they, work and get their citizenship and then pay taxes, that's a great thing. We want immigrants in America. Immigrants are phenomenal for the economy, for the nation, but only if they do it the right way. If they do it the wrong way, then we can't vet them. We can't make sure that they are actually safe people. We can't make sure that they're not cartel members. We can't make sure that they're not bringing fentanyl over the border. We can't make sure that they're actually going to abide by the laws, because we can't track them, right? That's why we call them undocumented, right? We can't track them. And so it's important that you do things the right way. And not only that, like, recent polls have come out showing that of all of the welfare recipient households, illegal immigrants are on the top of the list. They actually receive more welfare than the other types of households. Like, I mean, and obviously they have to contribute to it, at least because they don't pay taxes. That's why they're illegal, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but it is not. Yes, they do. Absolutely, CK. And I'll get you the data on that. They absolutely are at the top of the list. You can look at the graphs. They 100%, illegal immigrant households 100% absorb more welfare resources than non-illegal immigrants. It's actually, illegal immigrants are at the top. Immigrants are the second, and then like citizens are the lowest welfare recipient group. And I can't do it right now because I'm live and I'm talking, and I'll post it in the think. I'll post it in the permanent comments after the thing is done. I promise we'll do it. And look, even if that wasn't the case, even if they weren't the worst group, right? Even if I was like completely making this up, and I'm not, I promise you I'm not. Even if I was completely making this up, they are still a drain on resources front loaded, right? So it's still a thing where they're going to absorb resources and then maybe over time they pay the taxes and recoup it. Maybe. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just work under the table and then send the money home. But you don't know that because they're undocumented. There's no way to track it, right? In either way, there's a front loaded cost. Every time there's a front loaded cost to something and someone absorbs that cost without actually recouping it and without anybody knowing about it, right? They could just come into the nation and then immediately go to an emergency room and like, boom, there's like $5,000 of our communal money gone because of an undocumented immigrant who could have just stayed in their own nation and gotten whatever, or done things the right way and probably got medical attention the right way. There's many different ways to do it, but I just want you to do it the legal way, right? And again, I'll be the first one to tell you that our immigration system needs to be revamped. First one to say that. But while it exists in this fashion, we have to follow the law as is. We just have to. Otherwise, we aren't following the rule of law. Otherwise, we aren't a nation of rule of law. And why would anybody want to come to this nation, right? Half the reason that the illegal immigrants are coming to America is because they're escaping nations that don't have the rule of law. They're escaping nations that are cartel-led. They're escaping nations where their families are in danger of gang violence and drug cartels because there's no rule of law there. And if they move to another nation, they would expect the rule of law here. The reason that America is so successful is because of our rule of law. One of many reasons, right? So that's that. Now, here's been the Democrat response, and I'm going to have to talk about this because it's really important, right? Senator Mark Kelly and a bunch of other people, Alyssa Slotkin, and then Representatives Jason Crow, Chrissy Houlihan, Krista Luzio, and Maggie Goodlander all came out with a video. And this video basically insinuates that deportation of illegal immigration, like the ICE operation, is illegal. And they didn't say it outright, but they insinuated that it's illegal. And they insinuated that if you were a National Guardsman sent by the commanding officer of the United States military to defend a federal asset, they insinuated that that would be illegal by extension and that you ought to disobey it. Now, I'm going to explain how disobedience of orders works in a militaristic system, because these senators and congressmen do not understand how it works. They do not understand how absolutely brutally dangerous what they just did is. Now, obviously, they worded it carefully, right? So that they're not actually making any direct accusations. They're not saying that President Trump is issuing an illegal order, and they're not saying that, that they should disobey any specific order, right? So as to evade any legal culpability. And Trump, of course, wastes no time in also ramping up the rhetoric and saying, well, that's treason, and they, what's the penalty for treason? Do they get, and see, this is what drives me nuts about Trump. I don't understand why he has to do that. I don't understand why he can't just, address it calmly and collectively, or let JD Vance do it. JD Vance is eloquent. He can manage idiotic videos like this, right? Know the people under you, Trump, that have certain strengths. Let JD Vance manage stuff like this where there's like some nuance, right? Trump is not the person to manage nuance, right? But okay. So I came out with a video, and the video says essentially disobey Trump. That's essentially what it says. I mean, yes, it says something different technically, but you and I know that's what it means, right? We know that's what it means. I was in the military. When you're in the military, you got to understand certain things. Number one, orders are assumed to be legal until they are obviously not, right? You don't get the luxury of guessing whether an order is legal or not, right? If you're on, the beaches of Normandy and someone says, run up that hill, you don't think to yourself, man, what did those people up the hill do? I wonder if this is an illegal order. Should I do this or should I not? No, you just get your butt up the hill and take the hill. That's it, right? When you're in the military, it's supposed to follow this command structure because that command structure has led to literally an undefeated nation, right? We are literally undefeated because of a lot of different reasons, but one is that we follow orders, right? That is how you win wars. Now, that isn't to say that you follow every order blindly. There are times where you will disobey an order, but the times where you disobey an order have to be so outrageously, so incredibly, so overwhelmingly, blatantly obvious that there's no question, right? It has to be like someone, you've got ICE officers take somebody into detention, put them in the car, and the officer's like, you know what? Execute him. That would be the type of order where you would like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not comfortable with that. Negative. No way am I doing that. That's the kind of order that you refuse, right? Or even if if the ICE officer admits the illegality of it, like your commanding officer says, all right, I want you to just bust into that apartment. No, we don't have a warrant. Like they tell you everything about it and make it illegal. Sure. Then you can disobey the order. But if an ICE officer says, look, we're going to execute a warrant on this apartment, and they don't actually have a warrant, it's not your job to know that. You couldn't possibly know whether or not they have a warrant. So you follow the order because you don't know. You don't know it's not your job to know all of the information, all the details, all the context behind an order given. That's not your job. If you happen to know, great. But if you don't, you can't assume that they're just that it's an illegal context. You can't. You just cannot do that in the military. All right, what are we talking about? Okay, CK, I promise I will get this information to you. All right, you know what? You guys are right. I'm here by myself right now. Let me see if I can dig it up just for you. Just for you, CK. I'm going to see if I can dig it up. All right. Let me see if I can pull up the graph. Let's see. Illegal immigrants receive benefits. I'm doing this just for you. You know what? You should feel very blessed, right? Here we go. See if I can pull this up. It's going to probably take me a minute. You know what I should have done is what would have been wise is to go ahead and get this in advance. I didn't really expect this to be a sticking point, but it's a very easy thing to dig up if you spend a few minutes. But it's going to take me a couple of minutes. See, this is why I didn't want to injure the show by stopping and starting to do research just for you guys. But I'll do it just for you because I like you. All right. Let me see. Here we go. Receive. Boom. All right. So I'm going to find this for you. I'm going to dig it up and then I'll post it for you. I'll post a link. You'll see it. I mean, it's all as many other things. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like an angle to the graph that allows them to display it in such a way. But even so, it's not a stretch, right? It's not a stretch to realize that immigrants are going to absorb benefits. Here's the thing. Think this through logically, right? You're an illegal immigrant. Why did you come to America in the first place? Huh? Like, just think it through logically. Why would you be here, right? There's only a couple of reasons to be here. One, family. Two, you need help, right? Those are really, right? Like, is there another one? Is there another obvious one that I'm missing? Because those are the reasons to come here. All right, here we go. Cato study, non-citizen immigrants. Yes. Extra. Wait, hold on. Center. Yeah, illegal immigrant headed households have higher. Have high use welfare, use one or more welfare programs. I'm trying to find exactly the best link for you. Crosby, yep. All right, I think this is it. Welfare by, all right, 59% for non-citizen households. compared to 30. Here we go. Yeah, here's the study for you. Oh, no. What happened? Okay. All right. Delete. Boom. Here is the link just for you. You can go ahead and read it. Help yourself. Enjoy. So anyway, yeah, they not non-citizen immigrants and illegal immigrants and illegal immigrants with as head of households and connections use far more than normal citizen households. There it is in black and white. And of course, there's going to be, read through it, read the abstract, read the biases. There's always every study that you guys ever see from me or anywhere. Always read through it in total. Read it through it in totality. Make sure that you understand exactly what the study is saying, because sometimes there's some nuance there. But yeah, I mean that's why immigrants come to this nation, is because they need help. No, I didn't just link ChatGPT. I linked CIS.org. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, yeah, I definitely didn't link ChatGPT. It's CIS.org. This is literally, CIS is a very common study page. Do you not know? Are you not familiar with this? Anyway, yeah, take a look at the study and, look it over. Realize that that's what the information says. Yeah, no, it says ChatGPT ChatGPT is what recommended this study. It's not ChatGPT. ChatGPT is what recommended the study. I used ChatGPT to find it, right? Okay, if you want to see, at some point I'll screenshot the ChatGPT thing for you just so you can see. But ChatGPT is not the actual study. Yeah, it's very easy. Are you guys really? I honestly feel bad for you if you can't get to that link and see that it is in fact a study that is independent of ChatGPT. I feel bad for people who you can't find the page. I can find the page. Every time I click on it, it goes there. Because look, CK, it takes time. All right, listen, I don't want to take up the entire store. I don't want to take up the entire show just by finding this link for you. I promise I will post it at the end. If you can't get this link, I don't understand why you can't get this link, because every time I click on it, it goes up there. But anyway, I'll Google it for you. I'll show it to you. It should be easy enough to find. It really should. It really should. I don't understand why this is. I wonder if I can do this right here. Delete. If I click, boom, no. It's born. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. But yeah, I'll get the link for you here. Maybe try this one. This is the same link, just without the ChatGPT thing. Yeah, you can, Slimer, you can say, stuff like you're lying all day, but at the end of the day, you got to prove it, right? You got to show me that I'm lying. You can't I have evidence that shows that I'm telling the truth, right? And you don't have any evidence to counter it. So that's a really bad debate tactic. Anyway, yeah, tariff checks are ridiculous to me, so I don't know what that is. Anyway, I think the fact that Trump is going to try to pay people off to make himself more popular is ridiculous. Anyway, all right, so listen. Immigrants do use more welfare benefits. That's just the truth. And the reason for that is just pretty obvious. The reason they are coming to America is that they need economic help. That's like 99% of the reason that people come here, right? Sure, yeah, I'm being facetious. It's not 99, but you get what I'm saying. The vast majority of people are coming here for economic assistance. They're coming here to find a better economic way of life, right? They're not coming here because they're truly like life threatened. That's very rare. Yes, it happens, but most people are coming here because they just want a better life. That's it. So anyway, the guys are asking people to disobey orders, right? And this is really what I want to spend a lot of time on. It is so vitally important to the American military command structure that you do not insinuate things like this, because this will damage the nation. This will literally damage the nation permanently. If you get to the point where every single National Guard, every single military personnel is thinking, "Oh, is this order legal? Let me do some digging. Let me see if this one's legal. Let me see if this one's legal. Let me see if this one I can disobey." No, not only are you gonna destroy the command structure of America, you're also going to make us weaker as a fighting unit. You're going to end careers. People are going to get fired for insubordination, maybe even treason, right? Considering the circumstances that you're in, you might be in a situation where you are, if you're in a militaristic situation, if you're in a combat situation and you disobey an order and you don't have proper cause, that's treason. You can be imprisoned for life, possibly even executed, right? Now I'm against the death penalty, so I hope that doesn't happen, but dear heaven, and like, please do not disobey an order unless you know. Like, I'm talking about you, there, like, it has to be the most clear. And by the way, you can actually be arrested and detained and court-martialed for insubordination, even if the order is illegal. You would have to, it can't just be illegal. It has to be illegal, and you have to prove that you knew it was illegal, right? You can't, because if someone like says, hey, let's go execute a warrant on this apartment, and they don't have a warrant, and you say, nah, I don't want to do this. I feel like this is an illegal order, but you don't know, because you don't know if they have the warrant or not, right? If you do that, if you actually disobey your commanding officer because you're just like, I just don't want to do this, right? I feel like this might be illegal. No, yeah, that's insubordination. Your career is done. You'll have trouble getting a job elsewhere too. If you get washed out, dishonorably discharged from either the military or the FBI or something like that, and you're a washout, and the reason that you're a washout is because you refuse to obey the order of your superior officer. Man, you're done. Like, the only thing you're going to be doing for the rest of your life is flipping burgers or something, unless you have a skill that you can personally apply. Yeah, you're done. I mean, this is a very, very damaging video, and I think that was very irresponsible of those politicians. I think that was probably one of the dumbest things that they could do, was put out a video saying that you should, obviously you do disobey obviously illegal orders, right? If somebody tells you to, execute someone for no reason, or God help us, torture somebody, or just do something absolutely inhumane, or just for no reason, yeah, you disobeyed that order. But if the commander-in-chief of the United States says, hey, I'm going to need you guys to go down to this city and protect ICE because people are running into them with cars, that doesn't sound like an obviously illegal order to me. Now, let's preface this by saying, yes, a couple of rogue district judges have ruled that a couple of random places are the National Guard wasn't allowed. But you know what? Honestly, that's going to be overturned in the Supreme Court. It won't be allowed. Portland already has been essentially once, and then it's going to go again. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. But yeah, it doesn't take much to realize what actually sounds like an illegal order and what doesn't. But yeah, guys, take a look at that study, because I want you guys to see that there is data on this, right? It's not like I'm just making this stuff up, right? And that's not the only one, too. I can post some others, right? This is not mental gymnastics in any way. Yeah, Ultrafly, this is not mental gymnastics anyway. Hey, you know how many times Trump has been challenged by a district judge so far? Guess what percentage he wins? He wins almost all of them. Once they go to the Supreme Court, they almost always float in his favor. It is very, very rare that they don't, right? And the only ones that haven't actually to date, I think, were like essentially compromises. Like, for example, after Kilmer Abrego Garcia, they basically said, well, you have to give them 14 days or something like that, 14 days of due process to find out if if they are in fact an illegal immigrant or not, which is reasonable. I think that's reasonable, and Trump has abided by it, by the way. So yeah, it's funny. That's the other super frequent accusation that people make against Trump, is that he's like blatantly violating the Constitution. I have not seen a single actual constitutional violation, and the ones that he gets challenged on, he abides by the court's order, right? Like, he's abided by the 14-day due process order every single time since then, right? And arguably he shouldn't have to. Arguably that was kind of a weird arbitrary number. Like, there's nowhere in the Constitution it says anything about 14 days, right? They made that up, right? Obviously they made it up on the spot. No, I don't think it's an unreasonable ruling, but I think it's definitely arbitrary. It doesn't have any legal backing, right? And there is the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is pretty clear about what Trump can and can't do, and he can do it, right? He can. Just so people are, this is one of the ones that people are less familiar with, right? And I'm a big Constitution guy. The rights that are afforded to citizens under the 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment, 8th, and 10th, and on and on and on, all the amendments, right? The rights that are afforded to citizens aren't necessarily afforded to illegal immigrants. Now, the 14th Amendment expanded it to legal immigrants, but not illegal immigrants. The reason for that is there's a clause in the 14th Amendment that says they have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof, right? And that subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that clause means that illegal immigrants don't count, because illegal immigrants, we don't accept their jurisdiction. They come here and we don't even know they're here. How can they be part of our jurisdiction if we don't even know if they're here, right? If they're not documented, we don't accept that jurisdiction. And so therefore, they are not protected with the Fifth Amendment. They're not protected with the Fourth Amendment. They're not protected with the Eighth Amendment. We can literally just ship them back anytime we want. Now, I don't want to do that, right? And I kind of like the 14-day ruling, that because it gives them enough time to determine if they actually are illegal immigrants, to determine whether or not they actually do or don't have the constitutional protections that the rest of the citizenry do. I think that's reasonable. But yeah, if you're an illegal immigrant, you're not subject to our jurisdiction. We don't even know you're here. How can we take jurisdiction over you if we don't even know if you are here, right? If you sneak across the border, right? If you're just, anyway, point is, we can't take jurisdiction of somebody that we're not aware of, right? That's pretty common sense, right? And yeah, common sense, guys. The amendments were written for the citizenry. The 14th Amendment expanded it to legal residents, but not illegal residents, right? That for the same reason, if someone were to like storm the nation, right? If there was like an army coming across, they would be subject to the same essential problem, right? The same principle would apply. We'd look at it and we'd be like, well, these people aren't subject to our jurisdiction. They might be in the nation attacking us, but they're not subject to our jurisdiction. Therefore, we don't owe them any constitutional protections. We can fight back. We can send them back to whatever nation they were from. If they're actually in combat with us, we can execute it. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't like war. All right. So anyway, are there any other questions? Right. I just want you guys to see, I gave you data to back what I said. If there's any other question you have about, a study that I've mentioned or something, please let me know now. I'll try to dig it up. But all right. So Janice says, are you telling us that even a tourist can come over here and commit murder? And see, all right, but a tourist, here we go. Tourists are documented. Tourists are considered to be legal residents during their stay, which means they are protected under the 14th Amendment. They are subject to our jurisdiction. So no, I am not telling you that. You're talking about two different situations. But if a tourist came over here without us knowing, then yes, then we would be able to do whatever we want with them, and then we wouldn't have to abide by our constitutional protections that we expand to everyone else because they aren't part of that group. Now, that is to say that we wouldn't choose to take jurisdiction of them. We could choose that, right? We could do, honestly, as a matter of national security, we could choose to do a lot of things, but we don't have to. Tourists go through customs, right? Exactly. Tourists do go through customs. They are definitely 100% on the books. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Janice, let me know. You say this guy's a moron. Tell me exactly which part of what I said don't you follow? Tell me which thing that I stated is moronic. Yeah, you guys don't actually have anything behind your ad hominem attacks. You're just levying attacks. That's fine. I'm used to that. That's very common in political world. Now, I won't usually do that back to you because I feel like that's it's tacky. But I you guys welcome to do that to me. I have thick skin. I don't mind. But yeah, that's how the 14th Amendment works. And honestly, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, Trump was within his right to use that, and it's definitely a law on the books. If you guys don't like, again, if you don't like the laws, change them. I don't mind, right? Like, I don't mind changing the laws. That's what the laws are there for, right? If you don't like the amendments, change them. If you don't like what something says in our legal code, change it. Great. There's mechanisms for which that can be done. But what I don't think that you should ever do is just because you don't like a law, just act like it doesn't exist and violate it. That's where you get yourself into trouble. That's where, you're going to find yourself behind bars or deported or something like that. But anyway, guys, that's all I have for you tonight. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Please check us out every Thursday, every Sunday. Hopefully, now this next Thursday, we're going to be gone. It's going to be Thanksgiving. So you guys have a great holiday, but like, share, and subscribe. We'll catch you next time on Common Mansplaining. Keep it